Holy echo catastrophe, Arnold. It's the future, as usual, and people are dying wholesale from environmental poisoning in a world slightly less polluted than the one we're living in today. We catch a couple glimpses of what may be history's first demotivational poster. Then we're whisked to the nerve center of an enviro-activist movement led by a visionary named Mosley. A hypermasculine hero whose superpower appears to be mullet-related kills one of Mosley's underlings, then nearly kills Mosley as well, but at the last moment decides to show mercy and merely ruptures his spleen instead. The police and corrupt corporate henchmen on his tail, the failed assassin bugs out. Paco, now a fugitive, steals a bitchin' Camaro with DeLorean-style trimmings, then drives it through acid rain, lest we forget about the whole pollution thing, and ruins it. To cool his trail, he trades the car in for a clunker, then ruins that too. Having been his own worst enemy this entire trip, he just gives up and walks, and it's not long before he stumbles onto a backwoods arm-wrestling fetish bar.
You ever arm wrestle?
No.
It's a big deal around here.
Linda, the Sarah Connorish bar owner, puts up the seedy-looking Paco about as brashly and eagerly as Betty and Gramps put up Derek in Teenagers from Outer Space. Sorry, if you haven't seen Teenagers from Outer Space, this probably won't mean much to you. In the process, she provides a bit of useful exposition.
Why did you let me stay?
Who knows? Maybe the memory of the girl who showed up here afraid and broke 13 years ago, lost and nowhere to stay.
Soon we learn Paco is in fact a cyborg. A sinister corporation is sent to annihilate the environmentalists, who have been bad for the bottom line. The gangsters are now anxious to recover or neutralize the killer robot since it's gone rogue. At their helm is a vaguely embarrassed-looking John Saxon as Francis, who scolds his second-in-command for not being infallible, but decides to give him a second chance. After all, the corporation's forces are in a race against the FBI, who've placed agents of their own on the case, including the oddly named Agent Peckinpah. And incidentally, the movie has some sort of great director's surname thing going on that I imagine I'd need Glenn Beck's chalkboard to sort out. Having hung the arm-wrestling rifle on the wall, the movie has to fire it off. So Hands of Steel veers into an arm-wrestling plot cul-de-sac as Paco takes on first the insufferable Raul, then Blanco, the reigning tri-state arm-wrestling champ. Of course, being a cyborg, Paco's victory is assured in both cases. Blanco takes his defeat in good spirits, but Raul goes completely apeshit, and Paco must evade him as he and Francis collaborate to get Paco and Linda killed or captured. A trailer park shootout ensues, then a helicopter and big rig highway chase that's, in all honesty, fairly spectacular, considering Hands of Steel's limited budget. Let's get one thing clear. In a lot of ways, this movie is god-awful. The music sounds have been generated entirely on a single synthesizer. The dubbing's dreadful, the writing's scattered. The production values overall are about on par with your typical MSD3K title. Yet, strangely, I liked it. Unlike so many low-budget fighting films, the cynical and joyless laser mission comes to mind. Hands of Steel seems there really is no other word for it, game. It wants to be a good action movie. It goes to a lot of trouble considering its obvious resource limitations. Its fight scenes are fairly bruising, and its chase scenes admirably ambitious. Claudio Casanelli, in fact, died during the shooting of a helicopter stunt. In addition, the protagonists, particularly Linda, are likable, and Janet Agron's performance as Linda seems particularly earnest, to the extent the movie's dubbing allows one to tell. It also moves at a fairly brisk pace. There are a few slow stretches, but fewer than most films of this type. In short, as Sunday afternoon couch potato fodder, you can do far worse, and Mill Creek Reviews certainly has. So long as you understand that movies with low budgets tend to look cheap by nature, and you're willing to forgive or even enjoy this aspect of the movie. Considering that, it's unsurprising that the scenes do fail from time to time. One conceit, as his helicopter dogs Paco and Linda's fleeing vehicle and they keep swapping their machine gun from side to side to keep firing on it, probably looked better on paper than it does in execution, where it's sluggish and awkward. Raul's motivation for pressing so hard against Paco is never really made clear. Yes, Paco beat him at arm wrestling and called him a couple of bad names, but so presumably did the tri-state champ. And considering the caustic way Raul conducts himself, surely he's accustomed to the occasional snipe in return. Instead, he flies into a protracted, murderous frenzy that's helpful for setting up the later fight scenes, but makes little sense on its own. The actor playing Paco is too mesomorphic to be quite sympathetic as a good guy, in my opinion, and this is a mistake action movie makers often commit. Finally, when Raul is set on by a female cyborg, the scene is equal parts garish, fun, and preposterous, although I like the seal the actress playing her brings to the role.
I am a perfect cyborg, and I've been sent here to kill that traitor.
An Italian issue, Hands of Steel has a place in the 70s and 80s Mediterranean tradition of remaking Hollywood blockbusters, a later cousin of the same lineage that brought us Star Odyssey. But this movie is a particularly ambitious hybrid. Unleashed on society as an indestructible robot assassin, Paco is obviously a retread of the Terminator. But as a fugitive, a love interest for Linda, and an informant explaining the movie's dystopia for the characters and audience, Paco is also a bit of a John Connor figure. And in his occasional ruminations over whether he's still human, 70% of his body's been artificially reconstructed, Paco even presages RoboCop, which didn't come out until the following year. And it beats Terminator 3 to the punch by about a decade and a half by providing the twist of a female cyborg nemesis for Paco to do battle with. By calling attention to these clever bits, I'm not trying to give the impression that this is a particularly thoughtful or socially conscious movie, but it does occasionally give you something other than Pringles to chew on while you sofa surf, and that gives it one up on most other movies like it.
Come on, Linda, let's get out of here.
They will destroy you.